Hey, and just like that, we are back. We are live. It's New Comic Book Day Book Club with your boy, White Whale Comics, and your old man, John's Comic Book Kids.
Accurate.
The funny thing is, we were looking at pictures the other day that popped up on like the, um, like your
Like
memories on,
memories. Yeah.
on your iPhone.
Okay.
And Bree was like, "Oh, look, you look like such a baby," and I was like, "That was 4 years ago." So
Harsh.
clearly, YouTube has aged us all,
Just life
or just
at this
life.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Late
Uh,
stage capitalism.
I mean, that's been killing us all for years. From the womb to the tomb, baby. How you doing?
I mean, it's been a wild time, but I'm excited to talk comic books for a bit.
Yeah, it's always
and
a good thing.
ignore the real world for a smidge.
That's what I typically try to do these days. I got a couple people tailgating. Rod, what's up, buddy? Always glad to see you. And Scott, thanks, student of comics.
He
Well,
put me up in Portland when I was in
oh, very
visiting
nice.
Portland. He was nice enough to let me crash and hang out with his awesome dog and wife.
Very cool.
Sorry, dog and wife are separate. These are two things.
Oh, yeah, I got it, and they're both awesome. I understand.
They're both awesome. Yeah,
yeah, sure. I like how you said dog first, though, because we all know priorities of who you want to visit.
Yeah, I mean, I've been texting him to like send messages to the dog for me.
Yeah, when you came and stayed with us for the night, you also wanted to hang out with the dogs more than us.
I did. It
was
very enjoyable.
Yeah, they're wild. So welcome to Dog Talk.
I don't even have a dog. I don't even own a dog. I'm the worst at these shows.
You have a cat, though.
I do. She's sleeping, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's what cats do.
That's like 90% of the job.
They do it well. Where was I?
Maybe the books we want to talk about. November.
Maybe. We're talking about the state of the world. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah, there was a little of that.
Yeah. And how we're burying our head in the sand like a couple of ostriches.
Burying our heads.
I'm not even sure they actually do that.
I've never heard of that. Although I did hear the rumor that they look up when it rains and can drown, which seems like an impossible thing too.
I mean, they are very dumb.
I hear this.
Very
strong. You think they'd have a very strong cardiovascular system to get the blood all the way up to their head? Like a giraffe, you know?
I've always wanted to get an ostrich egg and just cook scrambled eggs with it and just go to town and see if I could house it.
How many eggs you would need to
be I don't know how many eggs does it equal? Because I've done a dozen scrambled before in one sitting.
For yourself, just for you.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That's a lot. I feel like hard boiled would be harder.
But yeah, scrambled. Cool Hand Luke. They did a whole thing on this.
Yeah, I know. So this is totally off the rails. But did I ever tell you that a buddy of mine back in high school? Well, this was after high school, but we were talking about that scene. He's like, I could do that. I was like, no, you couldn't do that. And so finally,
things start.
He talked himself down to, I could do 20. I was like, you can't do 20. Long story short, he did 20 for just enough time for me to say you did it before he barfed it all right back.
Oh man. Not worth it.
J-Mares.
Bragging rights, not worth it.
Yeah. Well, he won a bottle of booze, so
it better have been a really nice one.
Probably made him throw up again.
I mean, yeah, there you go. Coming and going.
You win some, you lose some, and I mean, I got out of it pretty unscathed, so who's the real winner?
You got entertainment out of it.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not here to talk about dogs and omelets and ostriches. We're here to talk about comic books. I think.
That's the plan.
I mean, it's our show. We can do what we want, but I'm in charge tonight. So we're going to talk about comics. couple 2-3 we're going to talk about. He was happy at the end of the day, so I guess everybody wins. So the couple of books that we both read, I believe, were G.I. Joe #1 and Black Canary, Best of the Best #1,
and Wonder Woman, Absolute
Wonder Woman #2.
Yeah,
and then you also read a couple other things that you might want to touch on, but that'll be towards the end. So
yes, sir.
What order do you want to go in?
I'd like to talk Black Canary personally. I know you have that as your thumbnail, and I maybe don't want to get to the rush to that. I mean, we've spent 6 minutes talking about throwing up eggs and dogs, so maybe we're not rushing to anything. Dog Omelet Ostrich League.
The duel.
Duel. I was gonna say, you got an acronym there, right? It's duel.
Are they dog omelets?
Ew. I'm disturbed by however you try to finalize this idea.
Could you milk me? Could you eat one of my eggs?
I got nipples, Greg.
Yeah. Okay.
So right. I just read this, so I can recap it if you would like.
Great. I also just read it, but please be my guest.
I just don't know if I can do G.I. Joe, so I'm trying to get in early.
Oh, yeah. No, I got G.I. Joe for you.
Black Canary issue #1, Tom King and Ryan Sook, who we were talking about not necessarily knowing any books with interior art by Ryan Sook before this. So this was a new journey as far as art is concerned for me. The story
I know him as a cover artist, but I might
if I saw a few of his covers, I might.
I'm sure you have.
I got some of those,
and so I might just be missing the boat, but I don't know that I've ever read anything he's done interiors for. But
okay, yeah, and I'm the same. Obviously, the story focuses on the current Black Canary, and in typical Tom King style, jumps in time. We get two events happening in the quote present. We have
not a vast time, but
no, maybe I don't know how much training time they had, maybe a couple months or whatever.
Right, sure.
We have a Las Vegas title bout happening, and all, I was gonna say bare knuckle, but all moves allowed, like Ultimate Fighter, basically
UFC style.
Yeah, showdown between Lady Shiva and Black Canary. Obviously, Black Canary can't use her superpower. It's just hand-to-hand combat.
They can't use weapons either.
And it's, they give you the details, like 6-minute rounds, 2-minute breaks, etc. And while round 1 is kind of playing out, and the intro by the color and play-by-play people is happening, we're also getting the flashback lead up where we see Black Canary going to visit with, it's her mom, right? The original Black Canary, and basically walking through the decision, I guess, to come do this fight, and the details of what she wants to do for training for the fight. And we get a little bit of her talking about how her relationship with Oliver Queen's not great right now, and we learned that her mom is dying of cancer, and so there's some details there, and kind of what's going on in her personal life, and we keep jumping back to the fight to kind of see how Lady Shiva is basically annihilating her, and Black Canary is not really holding her own very well, despite the fact that she's clearly talented, but also that more accurately, I guess, everybody is saying she's like a 7-1 long shot to win this thing.
Totally outmatched.
Yeah,
going into the fight, that she's got no chance, basically.
And so it's clearly setting up her as the underdog, and she is just basically just trying to keep herself in the game in some way here, because she's getting beat around. She only lands a couple of blows and is really just playing a lot of defense and trying to keep from being annihilated. by Lady Shiva. And I guess that's like 90% of the story right there is the information we learn about her family and kind of where things are going with her mom, and then the fight itself. And it all sort of culminates in her seemingly talking to a bookie who I don't know I've ever heard of before.
We don't necessarily know what his role is, but yes, he is.
He has the prototypical look of a bookie.
Yeah.
And he's telling her that he wants her to go 6 rounds, that she's got to survive to the 6th round before she goes down.
Takes a dive, yeah.
Yeah. And it seems to be that he is offering to basically cover her mom's medical.
He says straight up, I will basically give you the cure for cancer, not like.
Oh, is that what he said?
I'm pretty sure he says. We both flip back into the book.
Yeah, exactly. It was going to be exciting us reading.
Yeah.
After your mom has her cure and I have my cash, think of what it will be like then. So yeah, he does clearly say that he's got some way of saving her. Scott says it's Vandal Savage. I wouldn't know who that is. Although it says Savage right at the top of the page when they're talking about the fight, we're hearing the color commentator over the top of the meeting with the bookie. And it does say the word savage, so that could have been a hint. Interesting. And yeah, so there's this concept of her taking a dive, and I guess it seems like they're kind of setting up the concept that this mini series might be like
6 rounds.
Each round of the fight playing out against the backstory leading to the fight. Obviously meaning she is going to go the distance, and then it's going to be about whether or not she throws the fight,
right?
Seemingly. And at the end, the fighters are both still on their feet, and she is a little bit bloodied, but Shiva doesn't look like she's really taken much damage. Shiva looks like she's still in her prime.
But Black Canary has done enough that the announcers who are very much on the side of Lady Shiva for the whole issue at that point say, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we have a fight on our hands. So
because they had planned, everybody said
she's going down in the first round. And
7-1 shot, and she's going to be out in the first round. So that's the entire book basically right there. It took me we did about 7 minutes there.
Yeah, we talked more about dog omelets.
We did. What were your thoughts on the issue overall?
So for me, this is a perfect example of something I talk about a lot, which is pacing. Because, right, in your summary, it feels like, oh, this book doesn't have any substance really, or like not much substance. But the way Tom King has chosen, and this is something that I've criticized the opposite in other books in the past, of narration being the same as what you see. And he does the opposite of that here, where he tells you, especially at the beginning, tells you the story of her traveling to meet her mom visually, and tells you the setup for the fight in the captions. So you're not wasting time with just seeing a bunch of talking heads being the ring announcers saying, hey, here's all the details of the fight, and then her narrating her trip that you're seeing of her traveling to see her mom.
Yeah.
The only narration is from the point of view of the 2 ring announcers, and they are basically throughout the book constantly narrating the pre-fight and then the fight, no matter what you're seeing. So sometimes you're seeing them narrate the actual action. Sometimes they're narrating the action while she is talking to her mom, or while she is doing other things like walking to this bar where she's meeting this guy who's telling her to take a dive. So if it bounced back and forth between these 2 things and we were seeing them separately, this book would have been excruciating. But because Tom King was able to meld these two things together in such a way that not only does it make it more interesting, but it actually complements one another, because you are seeing her lead up and her passion for what she is doing while you're finding out about how no one thinks she can win, and then how she's getting her butt kicked. And
yeah,
so for me, I think it all came together and worked really well. You're nodding your head like you agree.
No, I do agree. I think obviously I'm a Tom King fan, and I still feel like
Apologist.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've gone to comic book court over this.
Yeah, me too. I was there with you.
Yeah. I think, Wonder Woman, his current run of Wonder Woman is the best thing at either of the big two for me these days. I've really been loving it. And I think the last couple issues in particular have just been stellar. And so I was excited for this book. I think it feels very, at this point, and it's early and he's got several issues to go, it feels like one of the more simplistic books he's done as far as the concept. It's not like there's just any grand mystery to figure out or to solve here. It seems the most straightforward, and as a result is an interesting character study. But it felt a lot lighter in that way. And I know it's about a character whose mom is dying, but for some reason it just felt like I was surprised by how much it felt like lighter fare for someone like Tom. I enjoyed it a bunch, and I'm gonna want to read the rest of the storyline.
Yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily say it's lighter fare, but it is more narrow in scope.
Oh, completely, yeah.
Because like you said, it's about cancer, and it's about, throwing fights. Like, it's not entirely, it's not goofy or lighthearted. And like the reveal of her mom taking off the wig, and you understand, like, it kind of hinted at it before that, but that moment of her taking off her wig and just looking in the mirror, and getting that feeling of like, oh, she's in much worse shape than we thought. And I think she even says, like, when she first meets her, she said, "Oh, you're wearing blonde."
Yeah.
And then, in the kitchen, she's
I had to read it over a couple times because the wording was throwing me.
Wording was weird.
I realized what it was.
It's a wig,
yeah. Yeah.
So I thought there were like some good, heavy emotional moments like that.
I meant lighter, as in like it wasn't complex.
Sure, it's not Mr. Miracle.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even like his more recent stuff, was it Strange Adventures and Human Target? I felt like were incredibly complicated and had a ton of moving pieces, not necessarily characters, but just like plot elements.
Sure.
And this one is very lean. It's the fight is obviously the main concept, but all of the rest is set up to the fight. And at this point, it feels very straightforward, which feels rare for King. I'm not comparing him to other books. I'm just comparing King to King at this point, and saying that like this feels like one of his lighter pieces as far as the weight of the story. The idea is very streamlined.
I don't necessarily see that as a negative. I mean,
I don't know that I do either. I think people who have an idea of Tom King and go into it looking for a certain thing might be shocked in some ways by the simplicity of it. Which is different for him. It felt very different from the other King books I've read. Obviously, Human Target is continually rising higher in my esteem the more I go back to it, but that might be Greg Smallwood doing the heavy lifting there.
I mean, he is quite good.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, holy crap. I don't know why Greg Smallwood isn't always working, like always doing interiors on something. I don't understand this.
I don't know what his schedule's like if he does other illustration work or whatever, but I think, artists like him and Chris Samnee and these people who have like more in the Darwin Cook, like classic comic book style, rather than like the like Jason Fabok type of like Ghost Machine, really extreme or like modern image. Yeah.
Dan Mora.
Even Dan Mora is like the Jim Lee school of thought of like super dramatic poses and super.
You don't think Fabok is in that? I feel like Fabok I would put in there with the two of them as well.
With Jim Lee or
with Jim Lee and Dan Mora in my mind. I feel like
yeah,
or what's his name, Finch,
David Finch,
David Finch.
Yeah, no, right. I'm saying like that they're all in one category, and people like
Smallwood and Samnee
are in a different category. And for me, they are what I look for more in comic art, because I think they tell stories beautifully, and their compositions are great, and they are hugely consistent and don't waste a line. But that's not the mainstream popular thing. Like, Wizard top 10 back in the day was always like Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld. And I feel like if that were still a thing nowadays, it would still be, the David Finches and the Dan Moras and the, people who are more, dramatic, drawing the 7 foot tall, long-legged babe girls. And
I think we're still in the post Jim Lee era. I think artists who are clearly inspired by him and influenced by him are dominating the market in a lot of ways. And I don't think that's ever going to be something that quickly fades. And as a result, the Tradd Moores of the world are relegated to a different status, sadly. And but then those of us that love them are always ecstatic when they're doing another piece of work.
But to answer your question,
Greg Smallwood, I feel like I'm always looking for more from him and never finding anything.
But I mean, to answer your question, it was a long ramble to get to it, but I think that's part of the reason why he probably isn't constantly having a regular book come out, is because unfortunately, I don't know the numbers of this, but like I feel like he's not a name that people are flocking to the comic book store to buy.
Maybe
compared to a Finch or a Jim Lee or someone like that. So
I wouldn't be surprised. That makes sense.
Anyway, back to the book. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good first issue. It went down real smooth, with enough intrigue for the story and the character for me to want to go back for the second one.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I always liked Dinah as a character, and whenever she would pop into Justice League or what have you, I was always very entertained. So reading this issue definitely makes me want to see where this is going to go from here. Absolutely.
Cool. Wow, we started off with a book that we both liked. What is?
Well, I mean, Tom King, I think we are definitely going to be on board with whatever he's doing for the most part.
Typically, I feel like, but I mean, we have read stuff from him on this show that we've been more critical of.
Batman,
Supergirl, World of Tomorrow.
I still like Supergirl, World of Tomorrow, but I get why people don't.
But I feel like, I mean, at least I remember being pretty critical of that first issue.
Sure. I enjoyed it enough that I stuck with it, and I felt like it got better as it went along, that book.
Oh, there you go.
Batman Elseworlds book coming out soonish. Yes. All right.
Keep your eyes out for that.
Oh, everything with the word Batman in that sentence works.
Yeah. I mean, still the best Batman book in the last 10 years is Catwoman Lonely City that didn't have Batman in it once.
You're not wrong. Not wrong.
All right. On to the next then, I guess. Should we talk G.I. Joe?
Let's do it.
Not the first G.I. Joe #1 we've talked about on the show. The last one was a...
Bueller still brings it up every time I see it.
Top 5 worst book, I think, that we did on the show.
Yeah. Didn't they try to kill like Duke or something right at the beginning of that book?
I have blocked most of it from my memory because it was so disappointingly bad.
It's not.
But it was a fun conversation, I remember. But boy, it was a real
stinker. Bueller was. If you ever want to see it, I can find it in our playlist somewhere buried. Yeah. But I'm happy to share it with you. If you want to see Bueller, he's a pretty calm guy overall, but he definitely had some big words to say.
If I remember,
big feelings.
If I remember correctly, we didn't have a scheduled guest for that episode. It was just us, and Bueller was in the chat. He's like, "Let me in, coach."
Yeah, we subbed him in.
Yeah,
that sounds right.
Because he was just so heated about it.
He was very upset. What's up, Richard? Good to see you, man. Yeah, so let's talk about the new G.I. Joe predicated on this Energon universe and all the setup that they've done through what Cobra Commander and what did they have?
Duke and Scarlet and Destro.
Scarlet. I don't think I read Scarlet. I read a one issue of Destro and I didn't finish that one.
And Transformers.
Yes, and then the Transformers,
because they are featured in this issue. Oh, hey, look, it's JP. What's up, buddy? And Brother John, what's up? Everyone's coming in right as we start talking about G.I. Joe. What if I say Wonder Woman?
Maybe Magic Lasso is going to show up.
That's what I was expecting to see. Did someone say W? So yes, this, not to be confused with the other ongoing G.I. Joe series, which is a continuation from the IDW series that I don't know the contract negotiations, but I'm guessing Larry Hama said, hey, yeah, we'll sign over the rights, but I get to keep writing my series.
keep giving me paychecks on this side, and you guys do whatever you want on your playground.
Because, I mean, he's like 300 and something issues at this point that he's been doing, so...
Going strong.
That's his baby, and he didn't want to give it up, I'm sure. But they have now released a new G.I. Joe #1 that doesn't replace that series. It is just a separate thing that is related to the Energon universe.
Okay. Yeah.
And so to give you,
and that's an Image, not an IDW, right? Because they're over at Image for this. Yeah.
Yeah, well, even the Larry Hama G.I. Joe series is now published by Image.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm way off on that one, obviously.
Since 301, I think, was the first.
Okay.
So, be that as it may, the brief setup pre this book is that Transformers land on Earth. Duke has an interaction with Starscream or someone, I forget at this point, but basically that is what leads the American military to form the special task force known as G.I. Joe to help them investigate and protect and fight off this new threat that they perceive of being these giant robot creatures. So this book starts with kind of a bunch of introductions to the members of the Joe team, including Baroness
Twist,
who is referred to as a war criminal, but not an ex-member of Cobra, because Cobra doesn't really exist until this issue.
And didn't she show up at the end of the Duke thing, right? She was in the Duke series, I thought, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember.
They'd had a little setup with Baroness, I feel like, before this.
Right.
Not a ton, but something.
This isn't right. This isn't like her first new appearance or anything. It's
right.
Just, so it's like Rock and Roll, Stalker, Duke, Clutch, who am I forgetting? Baroness and CoverGirl.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, no Snake Eyes, no Lady J, no Flint.
No, not yet, at least.
Yeah. Those are always my 3 favorites. So it's kind of like, all right, you're already one step down for me.
Because you're 0 for 3.
Yeah, right off the bat.
So there's some kind of some recap of him talking to General Hawk, which was very confusing because a lot of books have done this technique of like double narration or like narration bubbles of people talking, and they'll do something like put a little Superman logo and a little Batman logo over the narration, so you, or like a color of the border. And this had just like the tiniest little tiny thing in the corner is like this one's yellow and this one's green, and so one is Duke and one is General Hawk. But like if you weren't really looking, it just felt like it read weird. But anyway, so they're while they're introducing these characters, they're having this jetpack fight with these things in the air. Baroness, her pack malfunctions, Duke saves her, and then you find out it's just a training mission and they haven't actually started their official G.I. Joe missions yet. And it cuts back and forth between Cobra and Cobra Commander and Destro kind of bickering like they always do, and them introducing the first laser gun built from Energon technology that Cobra Commander is very hard about. Goes from 6 to midnight. And then Duke is sad because he thinks he's not doing a good job as leader. And so General Hawk kind of gives him a pep talk and says, like, I don't need 6 of you. I've got you. Let them be the best versions of themselves. Oh, and by the way, we're sending you out on your first mission because there's a giant piece of Energon technology that's been in the ocean, and they took a big chunk of it back to Colorado for some reason. And they need to go protect that because it's just like in a open air building. Like it's not in like an underground bunker or facility. It's just in a skyscraper.
No laboratory or anything.
Yeah. Just under glass, like some museum piece.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Naturally, Cobra attacks, try to get it. Beats them all up quite a bit. And then Duke jumps out the window at a helicopter.
So crazy.
And
that was the craziest Fast and the Furious moment for me.
It made me think of Fast and the Furious.
He barrels straight at this window, plows through it because it's already like shattered with bullets.
Right. So this helicopter has already machine gunned all the windows out, making them all drop to the floor. Duke then gives orders to everyone. Can you do this in Destro voice? I would, but no one wants to hear that, and my voice doesn't want to deal with the repercussions of doing Cobra Commander for another half hour. How dare you? Yeah.
Destro. Yes, Destro. I don't know either of us could do Destro. That's the problem. Cobra Commander is the more kind of voice. Destro's pretty monotone, as I recall.
Yeah, he's just kind of, I'm Destro.
Yeah, it's a deeper voice. It's like
yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so Duke is giving out the orders to the rest of the team, like, hey, you guys cover the stairs, you guys get rid of the, move the artifact. And they're like, what are you gonna do? He's like, I'm taking out the air support, and he just straight up dives out of the window at this helicopter with machine guns that apparently miss him because he makes it to the helicopter.
I just wanted the pilot of the helicopter to go like
just helicopter him.
Just turn.
Oh,
you're looking right at him. It's not like the pilot wasn't watching.
Or just go up.
Yeah, any of those, back, forward, you pick a direction. Even tilt the rotors. Just tilt the.
Yeah, right. Just just Fargo him.
The move was bold. Maybe that's what it was. The pilot was like, in that like, son of a bitch, he's gonna do it.
Yeah, like
just wanted to see if he can pull it off.
Gonna do. Like, he didn't react in time because he's like, there's no way this asshole is gonna jump.
He was going from 6 to midnight watching that.
Yeah, right.
Was just like, it was such a move. I mean, I both loved it, and it completely took me out of the comic at the same time. Like I couldn't decide how I felt emotionally reading that.
I think it was a good moment though, because it was like, oh yeah, okay, this is a G.I. Joe book. Like, this is a stupid Saturday morning action movie.
Yeah.
Type. But anyway, so the book ends with Rock and Roll being like, oh, I've been shot before. What a few lasers going to do to me, or what is this light show going to do? He says something, and then just gets tore up by these blasters.
Toasted, yeah.
So R.I.P. Rock and Roll, first issue.
Which I just want to talk about that moment for a half a second, because I think it's a phenomenal joke, taking a shot at the animated show where they had these crazy lasers that never really did any damage to anybody. But their first issue, they're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give those silly laser guns to Cobra, and we're going to kill a classic Joe, like right off the bat.
Like,
we're just
like an OG Joe.
Yeah. Tier 1 Joe.
One of the first action figure series Joes.
Yes. And I applaud them for that. I think as a nerd who watched the show and read the books, I was like, oh, at first I was like, oh, they're bringing the lasers in. The stupid lasers are coming. And then I was like, oh, it just got rocked. Yes. Rock and Roll got rocked.
Yeah, I mean, that clearly like lets you know, okay, this is a much more serious, I hate to say true to life, but like there are stakes involved. Like, because in G.I. Joe, the cartoon, obviously it's a kid's show. No one's ever gonna die.
Yeah.
They invented the bats because they could shoot something and have them get killed. Same thing with, the Mousers in
TMNT.
Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
But this immediately told you, no, there are stakes involved. These are people who can die. These are real weapons that can do real damage. And that Cobra is not always going to be defeated and just retreat in every episode. They aren't this cowardly group that runs away with their tails between their legs. They are going to, from the looks of it, be real threats.
You are correct. Yeah.
Having said all of that, I think this book has a major problem for me.
Ooh, okay.
And that is that the first half of it was completely unnecessary. If the book had started with them on their first mission guarding this thing, you could have introduced all the characters with some little back and forth about how, like, they touch on it where they're like, oh, they hired us for this, just be babysitters. But it's one line. Like, there could have been some, couple pages of them kind of shooting the shit, going at each other. And then Cobra attacks. You see Cobra Commander and Destro, leading the charge. Like, you could have introduced all of them in the action, because from that point, from when the mission started to the end, I was thoroughly entertained. From the beginning to when the mission started, I was bored to tears.
And that was my takeaway completely from this book. I've been reading, I would say, I'll be conservative and say like 80% of the Energon books I've read up to this point. I skipped Scarlet, like I said, and I read a little bit of Destro, but not much. And I think I'm maybe 2 issues off on Transformers. And I've yet to read, and I think I've only read 1 issue where I was like, this is great. Everything I've read was fine. And some of it, there were a few that I was not in love with. I didn't hate anything and I didn't love anything. And I've been waiting for the book that just makes me feel like, okay, you should be in on this. This is the book, right? Incidentally, for those that care, the only issue that I loved was the Cobra Commander gets tortured by the Dreadnoughts issue, which is fucking wild if you haven't read it. Like watching Cobra Commander gets played as this like wimp a lot, and they did a great job of having him just sit there in a chair getting tortured and basically just taking it. Like it was phenomenal. And again, it was slowed it down. It was just like all in the shack, and they're just like trying to get him to break. And it was an amazing book. But other than that, the issues have been take them or leave them for me. And this book felt the same. Like it just felt like more of the same, which just tells me that it's just not maybe for me, or that I'm not in the right headspace anymore for this stuff, maybe. Because I was a nut for G.I. Joe as a kid. I had all the toys, loved the show.
It was number one for me.
Rap ton of the comics. Okay, good. I still feel like the comics hold up really well by comparison to the show, which I tried to rewatch during COVID, and
it's rough.
It was painful. I was surprised. I was like, "Oh, girls, come watch this. This is gonna be fucking amazing." Yeah. And then they were instantly like, "What the hell is wrong with you?"
The movie still holds up.
Does it? Okay, I'll think about it.
I mean, I saw it. I haven't seen it in a couple of years, but last time I watched it, I still enjoyed it.
I was obsessed with the one where it was like the space satellite broke into 3 pieces and they got to like chase after them. Like that as a kid, I was like, oh, I want to see the Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes fight over that laser piece, and Spirit and his bird are going to come flying. I wanted to, that was, if I caught that episode, I was like, oh, the rest of the day is done. I'm just doing this.
It is just more proof of the universal truth that kids are dumb.
Don't watch anything.
Well, same thing with comics. Like there are comics that I remember loving, even as like a younger teenager, who, looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, I had my shit together then. Like I knew what good stuff was. And I go back and read them now. I'm like, oh my God, this is unreadably bad.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I got the compendium when I was hanging with Scott in Portland. He bought the G.I. Joe compendium. And then when I got back to my LCS, they had one and I bought the compendium. So I'm curious to reread like all the G.I. Joe. Yeah. Again. But the issues I've picked up and just out of my collection, the readers that are pretty much falling apart, I've still enjoyed. And I do remember it took a while, but I remember characters dying, and when it got near to 100, there were some deaths and things that were going on.
Yeah, the comic was I don't want to say more mature, because it still was made for all ages, but it was definitely not the cartoon. Yeah,
I mean, I remember people like there was an issue when Cobra, like Zartan helped them break into the what was the base called, the underground fortress, and then there was like an assault, and then they in the end the whole thing collapsed and characters were trapped underground, and Flint got the crap beat out of him. The guy had like one eye swollen shut and he was bleeding from his mouth, and he just got he took the beating, but it was amazing. Like I loved it. So I'm coming from a place of like, maybe that was just the nostalgia talking, and I don't know. I want to read another issue of this, but I fully agree with you that it was an uneven read, and I was just kind of like trying to get through pages at one point, and that was frustrating to me. However, yeah, like you said, the assault at the end, and when he jumped out that window, I was like, this is like, where was this energy like 15 pages ago? And yeah, like you're saying, that the shocking end had a lot of great like, oh wow, to it. Is this Joshua?
Wasn't a last page
I can't remember.
Yeah, not a last page villain reveal either.
No, a last page hero death,
which
or
could
weapon
very
reveal.
Well, they revealed the weapon earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's a good comic in here.
Yeah.
But judging it for what it is not great.
and I'll probably read digitally a couple more issues, and like I did with, and I'm glad I stuck with Cobra Commander after not loving issue 1. I'm glad I stuck with Duke just to have the general sense of kind of what that was going to be. And there have been issues of Transformers that I really liked, that I felt like had some emotional heft and, you know, drew me in. And then others that seemed just kind of popcorn and frivolous, and that's fine. And there's definitely times when I want that kind of thing. It's just, I was never as big into Transformers. It doesn't feed the same, you know, nostalgia itch for me.
Yeah, I really like Transformers, but we could afford to buy me G.I. Joes once in a while versus Transformers, which were a more expensive toy. So I think that's why I probably leaned into G.I. Joe more, because I had like 2 small Transformers, but I had, you know, a bunch of G.I. Joes because they were $2.50, $3, and Transformers were $20, $25.
Well, and as we got older, my brothers and I started borrowing mom's eyeglasses, screwdriver, and
taking them
braces,
apart,
rubber bands, and started redesigning our Joes. Oh yeah. That was a whole other phase of my G.I. Joe love, because then it was like mix and match, make your own.
Put Shipwreck's legs on Cobra Commander.
Yeah. But I never messed up with Lady J. Like Lady J, you don't touch perfection.
I messed her up in other ways. Am I right?
I'm saying, boy, that zipper went all the way down.
Ooh,
the deepest of ease. The Transformers were bougie.
Transformer bougie.
So
hey, Gore, what's up?
And it made it hard to appreciate you. Well, I mean, sure. Yeah.
I mean, right. They were definitely cut rate. The same thing with He-Man. Like all those shows back then were like the cheapest budgets you could imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, so was most TV animation back then.
Right.
You know, reusing backgrounds, reusing, you know, having pans on still images and stuff.
Yep.
So Dragon Ball Z, same way. Like, you know, 4 episodes of Goku just charging up his spirit bomb.
I never got into a lot of that anime. So like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all that stuff. I never got into any of it.
Yeah.
I missed the boat on a lot of that. I did see Battle of the Planets. I've seen some of that.
Well, that's older.
And Robotech and
right. That's 80s, 70s, 80s. So
yeah.
Right. Pokemon wasn't till late 90s.
By then I was trying to get laid.
Trying.
Oh, absolutely just trying. That was as far that's as far as I got.
Once I realized I couldn't, I turned back to Pokemon.
Makes sense. I get that.
So yeah, that's that for me.
All right, so there you go. G.I. Joe. Sounds like we're both at least going to try another issue of it, not just throw it away.
Yeah, probably, because like this, I enjoyed the second half enough to say like, okay, maybe you were just pressured into doing this intro thing for people, new readers, and because if the next issue is cover to cover as good as the second half of this book, I'll be pretty happy with it.
Yeah. The pit. That's what they called the base in G.I. Joe in the issue where they collapsed it. They break in and they steal some device, and then they set off a bomb and they trap them all in the pit. The pit. The cover is great. It's, I think, Zartan holding Sergeant Rock, I want to say, Sergeant Slaughter around the neck with a gun, and they're like going down the elevator shaft. Yeah. It's good. It's a good issue.
All right. Well, we're close to 11 EST. Do you want to talk about Wonder Woman, or do you want to talk about one of your other books?
It's fine to me. We can briskly go through and just rattle off thoughts on a few others.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to recap Wonder Woman all the way through.
I mean, we did Wonder Woman issue 1 for those that don't know last month.
Yeah.
So issue 2,
Absolute Wonder Woman. We're talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Good point. Yeah, Absolute Wonder Woman. So Absolute Wonder Woman issue 2 dropped. It obviously continues the story. It adds the Steve Trevor portion. We get a little bit of that. I felt like I liked the plot a bunch, and I liked the way it was structured with the past and present. I felt like the artwork fell off for me in a lot of ways. And
at some points.
Yeah, because a lot of this issue had to rely on dialogue and facial expressions, and I don't think that's where the artist's talent lies. The spectacle right? The aliens and the fights and all that kind of stuff are so beautiful, but I think sometimes the close-ups in the dialogue
there's one
don't work as well.
Panel of Steve Trevor finding out that he's in hell, where it's kind of like an over the head shot and he's going, oh, and I thought that looked pretty silly, but
yeah,
like the monsters and the Pegasus skeleton and like all that, and Wonder Woman herself, like all look really good, and the layouts, I'm still into the way he's laying out pages.
Yes. There was one shot where she's like still got this look on her face because she's just defeated the first villain, the whatever it was called, and then there's
the Harbinger.
The Harbinger is the same shot of her face, but like she hears Steve Trevor's voice behind her and her eyes change and her demeanor. That's a great use of facial artistry. I just think there's some other ones that were a little bit bumpier, and because the story was so dialogue heavy and it was so much more interacting and not action packed, that's where it was a little bit of a step down for me.
Yeah. I don't disagree, but like overall, I thought the art was still pretty good. The creature at the end looked awesome.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And like it's really hard to convey scale well a lot of times, I feel like, and this they really made it look giant, and threatening. Not just like, oh, this thing's creepy looking. It's like, oh, this is a titan. This is a god, and even Wonder Woman is scared of it.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of like little moments I really liked, like when Steve's like, "Can I pet your skeleton horse?" He's like, "What's its name?" It's like Pegasus. It's like, "No, I know it's a Pegasus. What's its name?" It's like, "No, this is literally Pegasus, like the Pegasus." Like, "Oh, is that why it's bones?" It's like, "Oh, it's more than bones. It's, don't like just look at it for what it is. It is so much more than that." So I thought there was like a lot of nice little moments like that.
Completely agree.
And leading up to another cool battle, it looks like. So
yep.
Yeah, I wasn't like, yeah.
Oh yeah, good call, Gore.
Really good movie too.
Yeah, underrated, underappreciated. And I mentioned it a couple of weeks back in one of my streaming videos.
Oh, well,
good one. Although I never saw it in black and white, I hear it's even better in black and white.
Yeah, me either. Yeah,
it's a long title.
Major Facing the Blood of Your Enemies and Calling Out God. Definitely still on the pull list. Yeah, I mean, it's still better than a lot of comics that are coming out right now. But the issue 1 was like such a surprise and such a high point for me that, like, not surprising that this one fell off a little bit, but hopefully issue 3 brings it back to the high.
And it wasn't a huge stumble. I feel like, it was just more that some of the artwork, because the story elements I liked a lot. I liked how they used Steve Trevor. I liked what they did, with the flashback. I thought that was really functional. I liked the way she handled the general. I thought that was fantastic.
It was just like not even flapping and eyelash. She's just like, oh, you can yell at me all you want, but you need me more than I need you.
Exactly. So no, it was a solid issue and still the best, in my opinion, of any of the Absolute books.
Yeah, for sure. I think I talked about issue 1.
We talked about issue 1. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm into it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we definitely did, because that's the one that I said it's going to be like multiple volumes, right?
Okay. And I think I was going to trade weight after issue 1.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll check it out when Lemire gets 1 volume done.
So maybe once the first trade is out, we can revisit that and talk about it on a show.
Definitely down for that.
So yeah, I mean, still enjoyed it. Still going to keep reading it. But yeah, not to the level of issue 1.
And then I read the new Justice League Dan Mora, Mark Waid book, Justice League Unlimited. And it obviously has really solid artwork. He's Dan Mora can draw characters really well. I just don't think it's on the same level as the World's Finest book that they were doing for up until I don't know if they're still doing it together. I thought a different artist had come on board, but Mark might still be writing it. I like the World's Finest book a little better. This one is interesting. I like kind of the concept, but I don't know that I'm going to keep it on my pull list like I did. Like I was buying all the hardcovers for World's Finest when Dan Mora was doing the art. That felt like a throwback to Bronze Age comic stuff, where it was just really like it just felt like classic comic book stuff, and a lot of popcorn, a lot of light read, but just fun, And each hardcover I picked up, I enjoyed and got a lot out of, and was always flipping the page like with eyes wide at what Mora was doing on the page. So I think in the end, this might become something interesting, but for right now, it just feels like a typical DC issue 1. Oh, he's catching up, watching at double speed.
that must be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, especially the Cobra Commander impressions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only reason I didn't pick it up because I like both Mark Waid and Dan Mora is just like books like that more recently, especially, like I'll buy them. I sound like we're talking super slow. It's all about perspective, I guess. Books like that when I buy, because I'm like, oh, I want to check out this first issue of whatever random book, and then I read it and like it or don't, and then say like, I don't want to own this now.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to throw away a comic, but it's also like not worth my time to sell it, so it just ends up sitting in a box that isn't really in my collection, but
right.
I don't really know what to do with, so I'm trying to cut down on those types of like random Marvel DC number ones that, if it turns out to be a really cool series, I'll read it some other way later, digitally or in trade. But I don't need to own that.
Yeah, and
I would say Justice League Unlimited, especially if I'm not really a Justice League fan.
And I would say if it intrigues you to read it, I would say grab that first volume of World's Finest that the same two guys did. And if that is interesting, I think you can continue on that. And by the time you're caught up on that, you might then be interested in this volume. So for me,
like I said,
that's what made me buy the issue more than anything, was how much I had enjoyed the World's Finest stuff. And I'm assuming that's why they got this gig, was how great they were doing on World's Finest.
I mean, I mean, good for you. I'm not telling you shouldn't. I don't have the heart. Unless it's like damaged. But yeah, I mean, even like the what is it, Batman and Robin Year One that Chris Samnee is doing right now.
Yeah, and I've been reading that digitally. I think they've done 2 issues, right?
Maybe issue 3 might be coming out soon. I don't remember, but obviously, like we said earlier, like he's top tier for me, Chris Samnee. But again, like it's a mini series. I'd rather just get a nice hardcover once it's done. Like I'll enjoy reading it that way more.
Yeah,
I just don't need the floppies in my collection.
I totally agree. And I've been reading it digitally just because somebody posted the most get John to watch your video thumbnail, which was it was the
never.
It was the Absolute Batman cover, and then it was the Batman and Robin cover, and it said, "What is the best Batman book of 2024?" And it was the I can't remember the rapper's name, but he's wearing the puffy coat, and he's doing like this, and then he's doing like this.
Oh yeah, Drake.
And he was pointing at the Batman and Robin. So anybody who's throwing some shade at Absolute Batman in their videos is probably going to get me to tune in just because I'm such a troll on it. So I instantly watched the video and was like, okay, now I'm going to watch. Now I'm going to go and read these issues.
Now that's Batman AF.
Yeah, exactly. just that alone. I so And I may be just so prejudiced against Scott Snyder at this point that I can't see clearly. I'm wearing the anti-Snyder glasses, so they're so big.
Next, someone's going to be like, Batman is Skibbity, Ohio.
He really is. There he is, a Perry in the chat.
John AF.
Perry, yeah. It is John AF, man.
Absolute Batman is a mess. Oops.
I think so too. Bruce Wayne has got the riz. He does.
He's got the riz.
But it's technically it's Alfred who says the line, guys. It's Alfred.
Yeah.
And it means advance forward. He doesn't mean as fuck.
No, it means no one has. It's like, have you seen those? I don't know if they're real or if there's someone just like creating something to troll people, but it's like a list of acronyms and how they all have satanic meaning. Seriously, like LOL isn't laughing out loud. It's Lucifer, our Lord. And
oh my God.
And so like
the same people that these are the same people like 40 years ago telling parents that the D&D is making their kids worship the devil.
So, I mean, I don't know if someone made it as a joke, but it did start getting passed around on Facebook from like, grandmas being like, "Oh, I can't believe your kids are using these acronyms. That's what they're secretly saying to each other."
Right.
So same thing with AF. Like everyone knows it's as fuck.
It means advance forward.
No one in the history bussin'.
He is no cap. Yep.
I think that's all the slang I know.
I know. I also read Storm issue 2. It's good. I'm enjoying it. Lucas Wernick is an amazing artist. I really like his
and you have enough copies of that Stephanie Hans variant?
I do.
You sure?
3 is good. Well, not you sure.
HMU. Yeah, you should search it up because there's some really funny ones. I don't remember all of them, but
that's funny.
Anyway, that's about it, I think, right? Oh, I want to show a couple covers that
let's do it.
Picked up that I'm sure everyone has seen, but I was still pretty excited about them. This West Coast Avengers Adam Hughes foil.
Oh yeah,
I do this.
That's awesome. That's showing up really well, remarkably, considering how foil covers usually are an absolute disaster to try to put on.
It's a spot foil.
Uh-huh.
Well, no, I guess it's not really.
It looks like a lot of foil on there.
Yeah, it's pretty foily. And today I
Rob worst. Fair.
Looks for alert. I had to sprint for this today.
Oh, nice. That's a classic.
All new Venom, Eric Larson variant.
Love it.
Yeah.
Larson Spider-Man is so underappreciated, I feel.
Well, especially the Venom, because he invented the tongue, as we have discussed. And
fact.
You know what they say? Ladies love the tongue.
I hear this is true.
Or so I've been told.
Satan's mom's house.
Shaking my head.
How'd you go on Poison Ivy covers this week? I got a few. I didn't get the 1 in 25. I was bummed. I got to see if I can hunt one down.
I got. I just didn't buy the 1 in 50 because.
They're just the Virgin variant of the Hans, right? Or the Prison.
Prison, but they're not even doing full Virgin variants anymore. They still have the DC logo on them. So all it is just there's no barcode and it doesn't say Poison Ivy in the tiny white font. It was not foil or anything. So I'm like, I'm not spending whatever the variant price for it. So
I don't count those.
I got all the regulars and the 1 in 25.
Yeah, there were some great covers for that this week. I snagged all 3. And I snagged the trade for Beneath the Trees. My LCS had a signing for the artist, I believe. And
nice.
He signed a bunch of the trades and they held one for me.
Very cool.
I've never read it. I heard great things. I way missed out on issue 1, so I was like, I'll just wait. And so now I got the trade. So I'm going to read it over the next few weeks, and maybe we'll mention it when we do our best of 2024.
Spoiler alert, I will be.
There you go. I assumed it would make that list for me, so I've been just kind of looking forward to the release, and I was pumped that my LCS was having the signing for them. So down for that.
Got anything else you want to promote?
Let's see. No, I don't think I got anything coming up. No, nothing real big. I got some pieces that I need to unbox here at some point. I might just do that on Saturday morning, and that's pretty much it. Things are busy these days with the holidays and all the school holiday events and things coming up. Friday night I'm out working late, and then the following Saturday, the 14th, I'm out working late. So lots of things going on.
Very cool.
Trying to read though when I got free time.
Yeah, always. I think not. It's definitely not this Friday. I think it's next Friday, which is just this.
The 13th
month is already flying by. The 13th, yeah. I'm going to be on The Hunt once again.
Ooh,
it's happening. So
they tried to get me this last weekend, and I just couldn't make it.
Yeah,
I thought we were going to tag team at some point, and
well, I mean, we still could, but
my long-awaited
return of the Underwhaler.
So good. You crushed that. That's so good.
I
went back and rewatched a clip of that, like, because we were on like the second. You were on like the first or second episode of that show.
I don't know if it was that early.
Early
but
on,
it was. Yeah, it was pretty early on. I jumped on board.
Yeah, it was so good. It was great.
And then obviously some Sundays we have D&D here on my channel with John and JP and Daymares and Big Will and Tony Old Wolf. Oh, YouTube used to be 90. It will always be 90, buddy.
Discord is now 90.
Oh, well. I'm not that cool to be on Discord. So otherwise, yeah, hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. Hope everyone is enjoying their December so far. And you know what they say, never turn your back on the ocean. Okay, bye.